Dr. Kang Dae-ho stared at the numbers on his screen for the 100th time that day. The math was impossible, yet it kept giving him the same answer. After 30 years of studying failed human attempts at faster-than-light travel, he had found something that nobody else had noticed. The laboratory was quiet, except for the soft hum of computers. Earth's premier research facility looked ordinary enough, but the work happening here would change everything. Kang rubbed his tired eyes and looked around at his small team. Park So-min was bent over a pile of engine parts, her hands covered in grease. Lee Hyun-woo sat at another desk scribbling equations that hurt to look at. "So-min," Kang called out. "Come look at this." The engineer wiped her hands on a cloth and walked over. She was the best at turning crazy ideas into working machines. If anyone could build what Kang was thinking, it would be her. "What do you have?" she asked, looking at his screen. "Every time we tried to build a faster-than-light engine, we copied alien designs," Kang said. "We used their exotic matter, their energy patterns, their understanding of physics. And every time our ships exploded," So-min nodded. "Everyone knew about the disasters. Ships that vanished into nothing, crews that aged 100 years in a single second, engines that created black holes that ate entire space stations. But what if we were doing it wrong?" Kang continued. "What if human brains work differently than alien brains? What if our consciousness creates different effects on reality?" Lee Hyun-woo looked up from his equations. "You mean our thoughts can change physics?" "Not change," Kang said. "More like bend. Look at these readings from the failed experiments." He pulled up old data from Earth's worst space disasters. Ship after ship had tried to jump to faster-than-light speeds and failed, but buried in all that failure data was something interesting. Right before each ship exploded, there was a tiny distortion in space-time, Kang explained. Not from the engines. From the crew. Their brains were creating ripples in reality, just by thinking about going faster than light. So-min frowned. "That's impossible. Brains don't have that kind of power." "Alien brains don't," Kang said. "But human brains evolved on Earth. Our planet has a unique gravity field and magnetic field. Our consciousness developed under conditions that don't exist anywhere else in the galaxy." He showed them more data. Every human who had ever been near a faster-than-light experiment had created tiny reality distortions. The distortions were so small that previous scientists had ignored them as background noise. "What if we built an engine that uses these distortions instead of fighting them?" Kang asked. The room went silent. Outside, the sounds of Earth's busy cities continued as normal. People went to work, ate meals, lived their lives. None of them knew that 3 scientists in a small laboratory were about to change the course of human history. Over the next 6 months, they worked in secret. The government would never approve their experiment if they knew what they were really trying to do. Official policy was that humans should stick to slower-than-light travel and leave the dangerous stuff to the aliens. So-min designed an engine unlike anything ever built. Instead of exotic matter, it used a special chamber where human crew members could focus their thoughts. The ship's hull was covered in sensors that would detect and amplify the reality distortions created by human consciousness. "It looks like a meditation room crossed with a rocket engine," So-min said as she put the finishing touches on the design. Lee Hyun-woo worked out the math. His equations suggested that a crew of 12 humans, all thinking about the same destination at the same time, could bend space-time enough to move a small ship faster than light. "The theory says it should work," he told the others, "but the theory also says it's impossible." "Good thing we're not aliens," Kang replied. They built their prototype in an old warehouse outside the city. The ship was small, just big enough for a crew of 12. They called it the Defiant Dawn, because it defied everything that everyone thought they knew about physics. The hardest part was finding the right crew. They needed people with specific brain patterns, people whose thoughts could create the strongest reality distortions. After months of testing, they found their 12 volunteers. Captain Kim Min-ho was a former military pilot who had always felt like reality was too small for him. Navigator Park Hae-won could visualize complex paths through space in her mind. Communications officer Lee Sang-min had an unusual ability to understand patterns that made no logical sense. The others were similar. Engineers, scientists, and pilots who had always been a little different from everyone else. People whose minds worked in ways that didn't quite fit normal human patterns. On the day of the first test, they gathered in the warehouse. The Defiant Dawn sat in the center, looking more like a work of art than a spaceship. Its hull was smooth and dark, covered in thousands of tiny sensors. There were no visible engines, no exhaust ports, nothing that looked like traditional spacecraft technology. "Remember," Kang told the crew as they prepared to board, "this isn't about the ship. It's about all of you thinking together. The ship is just there to focus and amplify what your minds can do." Kim Min-ho looked at his crew. They were about to attempt something that every expert said was impossible. If the experts were right, they would die in the next few minutes. If Kang was right, they would make history. "Everyone ready?" Min-ho asked. They strapped themselves into their seats. The interior of the ship was unlike any spacecraft ever built. Instead of complex control panels, there were simple meditation chairs arranged in a circle around a central chamber filled with quantum field generators. So Min started the systems. The sensors came online, detecting the natural reality distortions that each crew member's brain was already creating. On her screen, she could see 12 distinct patterns of space-time distortion, each one unique to its source. "Distortion fields are active," she reported. "All systems ready." Lee Hyun-woo checked his instruments. "Quantum fields are stable. Mathematics look good." Min-ho took a deep breath. "Navigation, set course for the edge of the solar system." Park Hae-won closed her eyes and visualized their destination. In her mind, she could see the path they needed to take. Not through normal space, but through the layers of reality itself. "Course laid in," she said. "All crew members, focus on the destination," Min-ho ordered. "Think about where we want to go. See it in your minds. Believe we can get there." The 12 humans closed their eyes and thought about the same place at the same time. The ship's sensors detected their combined thoughts and began to amplify the reality distortions their brains were creating. Something impossible happened. Space around the defiant dawn began to bend. The stars outside the warehouse started to stretch and twist. Reality itself was changing shape, responding to the focused will of 12 human minds. So Min watched her instruments in amazement. The distortion field was growing stronger, feeding on itself as the crew's belief made it more real. "Field strength increasing," she called out. "We're actually doing it." The ship began to move, but not through normal space. It was sliding between layers of reality, taking a shortcut through dimensions that most species didn't even know existed. In less than a second, they traveled from Earth to the edge of the solar system. When they emerged back into normal space, they were 4 billion miles from where they had started. "Navigation confirms," Park Hae-won said, her voice full of wonder. "We made it. We actually made it." But they had done more than just travel faster than light. As they looked at their instruments, they realized they had arrived at their destination 3 minutes before they had left Earth. Somehow, they had traveled through time as well as space. The implications were staggering. They had broken not just the speed of light, but the forward flow of time itself. And they had done it without exotic matter, without dangerous energy sources, using nothing but the power of human consciousness. In the distance, automated sensors throughout the solar system began detecting gravitational anomalies, unlike anything ever recorded. The Defiant Dawn's passage had left ripples in space-time that would be detected by every advanced civilization in the galaxy. For the first time in 3,000 years, something had happened that the Galactic Dominion could not explain or control. Earth had just announced its presence to the galaxy in the most dramatic way possible. Fleet Admiral Vextar had ruled his sector of space for over 200 years. In all that time, nothing had surprised him. The Galactic Dominion's control over faster-than-light travel made rebellion impossible. No species could challenge them without their exotic matter reactors and reality anchor technology. That changed in an instant when his sensors detected the impossible. "Admiral," his communications officer called out, "we're receiving gravitational distortion readings from the Sol system." Vextar looked at the data streaming across his screens. The readings made no sense. Something had traveled faster than light without using any known technology. The gravitational echoes were so strong they were causing stars to flicker across 3 sectors of space. "Analysis," he demanded. His science officer, a being whose species had served the Dominion for 800 years, studied the readings with growing confusion. "The distortion pattern is unlike anything in our databases. It appears that something tore through the fabric of spacetime itself." "Impossible," Vextar said. "Only our reality anchors can create that level of distortion, and we would have detected our own technology." But the data was clear. Something from the primitive human homeworld had just broken every law of physics that the Dominion understood. On Earth, Dr. Yoon-ji Hai studied the readings from the Defiant Dawn's first jump with growing excitement and terror. The ship hadn't just traveled faster than light. It had created a permanent change in the structure of space-time along its path. "The gravitational echoes are still spreading," she told Captain Minho over the radio. "Your jump created ripples that are reaching other star systems." Minho and his crew had returned to Earth orbit after their successful test. They were preparing for a second longer jump when Ji-Hai's warning reached them. "What kind of ripples?" Minho asked. "The kind that will tell every advanced civilization in the galaxy exactly where we are and what we did," Ji-Hai replied. The crew of the Defiant Dawn looked at each other with new understanding. They had proven that their impossible engine worked, but they had also painted a target on Earth that could be seen from anywhere in the galaxy. "Sir," Park Hae-won said from the navigation station, "I'm detecting massive energy signatures approaching the outer solar system. Multiple ships moving at near light speed." Minho felt his stomach drop. "How many ships?"
43 vessels.
"The largest is 10 times bigger than anything humans have ever built." The Dominion fleet had been dispatched within hours of detecting the gravitational anomaly. Vextar commanded from his flagship, a massive dreadnought armed with weapons that could destroy entire planets. His orders were simple: investigate the disturbance and eliminate any threat to Dominion control. As his fleet approached the Sol system, Vextar expected to find humans playing with stolen technology. Perhaps they had discovered a crashed Dominion ship and were trying to reverse engineer its engines. It had happened before with other primitive species. What he found instead made him question everything he thought he knew about physics. "Admiral," his sensor operator called out, "I'm detecting the source of the disturbance. It's a single small vessel in Earth orbit." Vextar looked at the readings. The human ship was tiny compared to his dreadnought, barely large enough for a dozen crew members. Yet as he watched, it began to phase in and out of existence, appearing at multiple locations simultaneously. "Explain this," he demanded. His science officer stared at the impossible readings. "The vessel appears to exist in several dimensions at once. It's not just moving through space. It's existing in multiple realities simultaneously." On the Defiant Dawn, Lee Hyunwoo was making the same discovery from the other side. "Captain, our second jump has created something unexpected. We're not just in normal space anymore. We're spread across multiple probability states." The ship's second test jump had been even more dramatic than the first. This time they had traveled not just through space but through parallel versions of reality. The ship now existed in several dimensions at once, making it nearly impossible to target or predict. "Can we control it?" Minho asked. "I think so," Hyunwoo replied, studying his readings. "Our consciousness isn't just bending space-time anymore. It's rewriting the rules of physics in the space around us." Park So-min confirmed what they were all beginning to understand. The ship's reality distortion field is expanding. Everywhere we go, the laws of physics change to match what we believe should be possible. This was beyond anything they had imagined. They weren't just using faster-than-light travel. They were creating zones where human understanding of physics replaced the normal laws of the universe. Admiral Vextar ordered his fleet into attack formation. "All vessels target the human ship. Fire when ready." 43 of the most advanced warships in the galaxy opened fire at once. Energy beams that could vaporize moons lanced through space toward the tiny human vessel. Every shot missed. The Defiant Dawn wasn't where the targeting computers said it should be. It existed in a probability cloud simultaneously in dozens of locations at once. The Dominion's weapons, designed to work under normal physics, couldn't lock onto a target that existed in multiple realities. "Impossible," Vextar muttered. "Our weapons never miss." "Sir," his tactical officer reported, "the human vessel is approaching our formation." On the Defiant Dawn, Lieutenant Commander Oh Sung-jin was learning to use their ship's new capabilities. "Captain, I think I understand how our weapons work now. We don't fire energy beams. We convince reality that the target should be damaged." It was a completely different way of thinking about combat. Instead of overpowering an enemy with superior firepower, they were changing the rules of physics to make their attacks impossible to defend against. "Try it," Minho ordered. Sung-jin focused his thoughts on one of the smaller Dominion ships. He didn't imagine firing a weapon at it. Instead, he imagined that the ship's hull was already damaged, that its systems had already failed, that its crew was already surrendering. The Dominion vessel suddenly lost power. Its hull developed cracks that shouldn't exist. Systems that had worked perfectly for centuries suddenly malfunctioned for no reason that their engineers could understand. What just happened? Vextar demanded. His science officer studied the readings from the damaged ship. Unknown. The vessel appears to have suffered multiple system failures simultaneously. There's no evidence of weapon impact. Sir, another officer called out. The human ship is inside our formation. The Defiant Dawn had simply appeared among the Dominion vessels. It hadn't flown there through normal space. It had convinced reality that it should be there, and reality had complied. Now the expanding reality distortion field was affecting the entire Dominion fleet. Ships that had operated under the same physical laws for thousands of years suddenly found their systems behaving in impossible ways. Exotic matter reactors, the foundation of all Dominion technology, began to destabilize as the laws governing their operation changed. Navigation systems provided readings that violated basic mathematics. Weapons that had never failed began firing in random directions. Admiral, his science officer said, his voice filled with growing panic. The space around the human vessel is operating under different physical laws. Our technology can't function in that environment. Vextar realized that this was not a battle he could win with conventional tactics. The humans had somehow learned to weaponize physics itself. Their single small ship was defeating his entire fleet, not through superior firepower, but by changing the fundamental nature of reality. All ships, retreat to minimum safe distance, he ordered. We need to understand what we're dealing with before we can form an effective response. But as his fleet pulled back, the damage was already done. The reality distortion field continued to expand, and other ships throughout the Dominion's territory were beginning to detect its effects. The Defiant Dawn made one more jump, this time directly through Vextar's flagship. The ship didn't collide with the massive dreadnought. Instead, it briefly overwrote the alien vessel's existence, transforming it into something that followed human engineering principles before snapping back to its original form. The flagship survived, but barely. Its hull was cracked, its systems failing, and its crew traumatized by briefly existing according to physics they couldn't understand. As the battered Dominion fleet retreated toward the edge of the solar system, Vextar sent an urgent message to Dominion headquarters. The report he transmitted would shake the foundations of an empire that had ruled the galaxy, unchallenged for 3,000 years. For the first time in their history, the Dominion had encountered something they could not control, could not understand, and could not defeat through conventional means. Humanity had announced itself to the galaxy not as a primitive species seeking acceptance, but as a force that could rewrite the very laws of reality. Supreme Hierarch Zolneth had ruled the Galactic Dominion for over 1,500 years. His species had been the galaxy's masters for so long that most other races couldn't imagine a universe without their control. That was about to change. The emergency council session brought together the most powerful beings in the galaxy. Representatives from 100 species sat in the vast chamber, all of them listening to Admiral Vextar's impossible report. The human vessel exists in multiple dimensions simultaneously, Vextar explained to the stunned council. Our weapons cannot target it. Our shields cannot stop it, and everywhere it goes, it changes the fundamental laws of physics. Chief Science Advisor Kex Mara, whose people had been studying the universe for 3,000 years, struggled to understand the data. This contradicts everything we know about reality. Consciousness cannot alter physical constants. Tell that to the humans, Vextar replied grimly. Word of the defeat had already begun to spread throughout Dominion space. For 3 millennia, the Empire's power had rested on one simple truth. They controlled all faster-than-light travel through their monopoly on exotic matter. No species could rebel because no species could move their ships faster than light without Dominion permission. Now there was another way, and if other species learned how to use it, the Empire would crumble overnight. On Earth, the crew of the Defiant Dawn was making discoveries that terrified them. Dr. Bei Young-soo, the ship's physicist, had been studying the effects of their jumps on local spacetime. Every time we jump, we leave behind a zone where physics works differently, he told Captain Minho. These zones are permanent, and they're growing. Minho studied the readings on Youngsu's screen. The areas where they had tested their faster-than-light drive now operated according to human understanding of physics, rather than universal constants. In these zones, thoughts could influence matter, willpower could overcome energy barriers, and the laws of thermodynamics bent to conscious intention. What happens if these zones keep expanding? Minho asked. Eventually they could cover the entire galaxy, Youngsu replied. Every star system would operate according to human physics instead of the natural laws that have governed the universe for billions of years. The moral implications were staggering. They had the power to fundamentally change the nature of reality for every living being in the galaxy. But did they have the right? The decision was taken out of their hands when Park So-min detected massive energy signatures approaching from deep space. "Captain," she called out. "Long-range sensors are picking up the largest fleet movement in recorded history. Thousands of ships all heading toward Earth." The Dominion's response was unprecedented. War Hierarch Thuldax, the Empire's most feared military commander, had been given unlimited authority to deal with the human threat. His armada included ships from dozens of species, all equipped with the Empire's most advanced technology. More importantly, they carried reality anchors, massive devices designed to stabilize space-time and prevent any alterations to the fundamental laws of physics. If the Dominion could establish enough reality anchors around Earth, they could trap the human ship in normal space and destroy it with conventional weapons. "Sir," Navigator Park Hae-won reported, "the approaching fleet numbers in the thousands. I'm detecting at least 50 reality anchors." Minho looked at his crew. They had started this journey hoping to free humanity from the prison of their own solar system. Now they faced a choice that would determine the fate of the entire galaxy. "If we run, they'll hunt us forever," he said. "If we fight, we might destroy the natural order of the universe." Communications Officer Lee Sang-min had been monitoring Dominion transmissions. "Captain, I'm picking up broadcasts from other species. Word of our abilities has spread. Some of the Empire's subject races are beginning to rebel." It was true. Throughout Dominion space, species that had been enslaved for centuries were attempting to use human physics principles to free themselves. Most failed, but a few succeeded in creating small reality distortions of their own. The Keth Mori, a race of crystalline beings who had been mining slaves for 800 years, managed to build ships that could phase through solid matter. They used this new ability to escape their prison worlds and begin liberating others. Other species tried similar experiments. Some died in the attempt, their consciousness too different from human thought patterns to create stable reality distortions. But others succeeded, and each success weakened the Dominion's absolute control. "We're not just fighting for humanity anymore," Minho realized. "We're fighting for every species that the Dominion has oppressed." Dr. Yoon Ji-hai's voice came over the radio from Earth. "Captain, we're detecting massive space-time disturbances throughout the galaxy. The reality zones you've created are having chain reactions. Other species are learning to manipulate physics the same way you do." The crew of the Defiant Dawn understood that they had already changed the galaxy forever. The question now was whether they could prevent the Dominion from undoing those changes through the complete destruction of any system that showed signs of altered physics. War Hierarch. Thuldax approached Earth with absolute confidence. His fleet was the largest ever assembled, equipped with reality anchors that could stabilize space-time across an entire star system. Once the anchors were in place, the human ship would be trapped in normal space where it could be destroyed by overwhelming firepower. "Deploy reality anchors in a sphere around the human homeworld," he ordered. "Maximum coverage. I want every cubic meter of space locked down to standard physical constants." The massive devices activated simultaneously, creating a field that should have frozen space-time into its natural configuration. For a moment it seemed to work. The expanding zones of human physics stopped growing and began to contract. But then something unexpected happened. The human ship didn't become trapped in normal space. Instead, it began to multiply. "Sir," Thuldax's sensor operator called out, "the human vessel is appearing in multiple locations simultaneously. I'm counting dozens of copies." The reality anchors had stabilized space-time, but they couldn't account for the fact that the Defiant Dawn existed in several parallel realities at once. Each reality anchor created a separate stable zone, and the ship appeared in all of them simultaneously. Captain Minho and his crew found themselves experiencing multiple timelines at once. In some realities, they were fighting the Dominion fleet. In others, they were fleeing toward the edge of the galaxy. In still others, they were negotiating a peaceful solution. "This is impossible," Security Chief Han Woo-jin said, watching multiple versions of reality unfold on their screens. "We can't exist in this many places at once." "We're not just existing in multiple places," Navigator Park Hae-won realized. "We're existing in multiple possibilities. The reality anchors are forcing us to experience every possible outcome of this battle simultaneously." The effect on the Dominion fleet was devastating. Their weapons couldn't target a ship that existed in dozens of different realities. Their shields couldn't protect them from attacks that came from parallel timelines. Their sensors couldn't track movements that happened in multiple dimensions at once. War Hierarch. Thuldax watched his mighty fleet fall into chaos as the human ship waged war across multiple realities simultaneously. Ships that were destroyed in one timeline continued fighting in others. Weapons fired in one reality affected targets in different dimensions. "All vessels, concentrate fire on the primary timeline," he ordered desperately. But his crew couldn't tell which timeline was primary. The human ship appeared equally real in all of them, and its attacks were having cumulative effects across multiple realities. Lieutenant Commander Oh Seung-jin had learned to use their multi-dimensional existence as a weapon. "Captain, I can fire at their flagship from 6 different timelines simultaneously. Their shields can only protect them in one reality at a time." The attack succeeded beyond their wildest expectations. Thuldax's flagship, designed to withstand the combined firepower of entire fleets, couldn't defend against attacks that came from multiple realities. Its hull cracked as weapons fire from parallel timelines accumulated in the same physical space. "Reality anchors failing," Thuldax's science officer reported. "The human ship is overloading our stabilization fields. The massive reality anchors, designed to lock spacetime into natural configurations, began to overload as they tried to process the existence of a ship that operated in multiple realities simultaneously. One by one, they exploded, sending shockwaves through the fabric of reality itself. As the reality anchors failed, the zones of human physics began expanding again, faster than ever before. The explosion of the anchors created resonance waves that spread the reality distortions across vast distances. Throughout the galaxy, species that had never heard of humans suddenly found themselves able to manipulate local physics through focused thought. The Dominion's carefully maintained order began to collapse as the fundamental forces that enforced their rule disappeared. War Hierarch Thuldax made a fatal decision in his desperation. He ordered his flagship to ram the human vessel, believing that mass and momentum would work regardless of dimensional anomalies. His ship accelerated toward the defiant dawn at maximum speed. The news of War Hierarch Thuldax's defeat spread across the galaxy like wildfire. Within days, every species under Dominion control knew that the impossible had happened. The Empire's most powerful fleet had been destroyed by a single human vessel that could rewrite the laws of physics. Chief Engineer Park So-min watched the sensor readings with growing alarm. The reality distortion zones weren't just expanding anymore. They were breeding. Each zone that reached a certain size began creating new zones around it, spreading human physics like a virus through the fabric of spacetime. "Captain," she reported to Minho, "the distortion fields are becoming self-sustaining. Every time they encounter conscious minds, they grow stronger." It was exactly what they had feared. The zones of altered physics were feeding on consciousness itself. Wherever thinking beings observed the changes, their awareness made the changes more real and more permanent. Throughout the galaxy, species that had never imagined freedom were discovering abilities they never knew they possessed. The Kethmori crystalline beings had learned to phase their ships through solid matter. They used this power to slip past Dominion defenses and liberate their enslaved homeworlds. The Mirthul, an aquatic species that had been forced to work in underwater mining colonies, found they could manipulate water pressure and currents through focused thought. Their rebellion began in the deepest ocean trenches and spread to every water world in their sector. Even more dramatic was the uprising of the Vexhai, a gaseous species that had been harvested for their natural ability to process exotic matter. Once they learned that consciousness could alter physics, they discovered they could exist in multiple states simultaneously, making them impossible for Dominion forces to capture or contain. Communications Officer Lee Sang-min intercepted thousands of distress calls from Dominion commanders throughout the galaxy. Captain, the rebellions are spreading faster than the Dominion can respond. Entire sectors are declaring independence. But the expanding reality zones brought problems as well as freedom. On worlds where multiple species tried to use the new physics simultaneously, conflicting beliefs about how reality should work created chaos. Planets where some inhabitants believed in human-style physics while others clung to natural laws became unstable, with different regions operating under completely different sets of physical constants. Dr. Bae Young-soo studied the reports with growing concern. "We're seeing reality wars," he told the crew. "When different consciousness types try to impose their understanding of physics on the same space, the results are catastrophic." Some star systems had become uninhabitable, as conflicting physics created zones where matter behaved unpredictably. Others had split into parallel dimensions, with different versions of the same planet existing simultaneously in the same location. The crew of the Defiant Dawn faced a terrible moral burden. They had given the galaxy the power to overthrow the Dominion's tyrannical rule, but they had also unleashed forces that could destroy the ordered universe entirely. "We have to do something," Security Chief Han Woo-jin argued during one of their debates. "We can't let the galaxy tear itself apart because of what we started." Others disagreed. Lieutenant Commander Oh Sung-jin believed that the chaos was a necessary price for freedom. The Dominion kept order by oppressing trillions of beings for thousands of years. If their system breaks down, that's not our fault. The argument was interrupted by Navigator Park Hae-won's urgent report. "Captain, long-range sensors are detecting massive energy signatures at the galaxy's edge. Something huge is heading toward the core systems." What they had detected was the Dominion's final gambit. Supreme Hierarch Zolneth had authorized the EU deployment of reality bombs, weapons designed to completely destroy space-time in affected regions rather than allow the reality distortions to spread further. Each reality bomb could erase an entire star system from existence, leaving behind empty void where nothing could ever exist again. The Dominion had built dozens of these weapons over the millennia, keeping them as the ultimate insurance against any threat to their rule. "Sir," Dr. Kexmara reported to the Supreme Hierarch, "the reality distortions now cover 30% of the galaxy and are expanding exponentially. At current rate of spread, they will reach the core worlds within 6 months." Zolneth studied the tactical displays showing the collapse of his empire. Entire fleets were deserting or being destroyed by newly empowered rebel species. The carefully maintained hierarchy that had kept thousands of species in line for millennia was crumbling. "Deploy the reality bombs," he ordered. "Target every system showing signs of physics alteration. If we cannot maintain control, we will ensure that no one else can either." On Earth, Dr. Yoon Ji-hai detected the approach of the Dominion's Doomsday Fleet. "Captain, we're tracking multiple reality bomb signatures heading toward inhabited systems. If those weapons detonate, they'll kill billions of beings and create dead zones where nothing can ever exist again." The crew of the Defiant Dawn realized they faced their ultimate test. They could flee to the galaxy's edge and survive while the Dominion destroyed every system that showed signs of altered physics, or they could attempt something that had never been tried before, using their reality warping abilities to create a stable interface between human physics and natural constants. Dr. Kang Dae-ho, speaking from Earth, proposed a desperate solution. "You've learned to change local physics by focused thought. What if you could convince reality that multiple physics systems can coexist peacefully?" It was a staggering concept. Instead of forcing all of reality to conform to one set of laws, they would create a galaxy where different regions could operate under different physics while remaining stable and connected. "The mathematics are incredibly complex," Lee Hyun-woo admitted as he worked through the calculations. "We would need to rewrite the fundamental structure of spacetime on a galactic scale." "And if we fail?" Captain Minho asked. "If we fail, we could destroy the entire galaxy," Young-soo replied honestly. "Or we could lock it into a single physics state permanently, ending all possibility of change or growth." The first reality bomb detonated in a system where the Kethmori had been experimenting with crystalline physics. The explosion didn't just destroy the planets and their inhabitants. It erased them from existence entirely, leaving behind a sphere of absolute nothingness that would remain empty forever. The shock wave from the detonation rippled through the galaxy's consciousness. Every thinking being felt the death of an entire star system, and their collective horror made the remaining reality zones more unstable. "We're running out of time," Minho realized. The Dominion is going to destroy everything rather than lose control. Park So-min had been studying their ship's reality warping systems, looking for a way to amplify their abilities. Captain, what if we don't try to stabilize the entire galaxy at once? What if we start with one system and create a template that can spread the same way the distortions did? It was a brilliant insight. Instead of trying to impose their will on the entire galaxy simultaneously, they could create a single stable system where multiple physics could coexist, then allow that stability to spread naturally through conscious observation. We would need to sacrifice our individual consciousness, Young-Soo warned. The process would require each crew member to merge temporarily with the quantum foam that underlies all reality. We might not come back as the same people we are now. The crew looked at each other, understanding the magnitude of what they were being asked to do. They would give up their individual identity to save the galaxy from both Dominion tyranny and physics-induced chaos. I volunteer, Han Woo-jin said immediately. One by one, the others agreed. They had started this journey to free humanity from the prison of their own solar system. Now they would give up their humanity itself to free the galaxy from the prison of singular reality. Captain Minho set course for the galactic core, where the reality bomb fleet was preparing to sterilize thousands of inhabited worlds. The Defiant Dawn began its final journey, no longer just a ship, but a living weapon aimed at the heart of the Dominion's power. As they approached the core systems, they could see the reality bombs being positioned around inhabited worlds. The weapons were massive, each one capable of erasing an entire solar system from existence. The Dominion was preparing to commit genocide on a scale never before attempted. All crew members prepare for consciousness merger, Minho ordered. We're going to rewrite reality one last time. The 12 humans who had started as rebels and explorers prepared to become something beyond human understanding. They would merge with the quantum foam that underlies all existence and attempt to create a galaxy where freedom and order could coexist. Their success or failure would determine whether conscious beings throughout the galaxy would have the right to shape their own reality, or whether the universe would be locked forever into a single, tyrannical vision of how existence should work. The final battle was about to begin, fought not with weapons or fleets, but with the fundamental forces that determine what is real and what is possible. The Defiant Dawn dove into the quantum foam that exists beneath normal space-time, carrying its 12 human crew members beyond the boundaries of ordinary reality. Here, in the fundamental layer where all existence begins, they could see the true structure of the universe. Reality wasn't a fixed set of laws, as everyone had believed. It was a vast consensus of conscious observation that shaped the basic constants of physics. For billions of years, this consensus had been stable, creating the natural laws that governed everything from the movement of planets to the behavior of atoms. Dr. Kang Dae-ho, his consciousness now expanded beyond his physical body, understood what the Dominion had really been doing for 3 millennia. By controlling all advanced technology and limiting other species' understanding of physics, they had literally prevented those species from accessing the reality-shaping abilities that consciousness could provide. The Dominion didn't just rule through military power, he realized, his thoughts echoing through the quantum foam. They ruled by limiting what other species could believe was possible. Captain Minho felt his individual identity dissolving as he merged with the fundamental forces of existence. Around him, his crew was undergoing the same transformation, their human consciousness expanding to encompass the deepest levels of reality. Navigator Park Hae-won was the first to detect the other reality bubbles scattered throughout the galaxy. These were places where different species had briefly managed to alter local physics before being suppressed by the Dominion. The suppressed realities still existed as dormant possibilities, waiting to be awakened. There are thousands of them, she reported, her voice now speaking through the quantum field itself. Every species that ever dreamed of changing their world left traces in the quantum foam. The crew of the Defiant Dawn realized they had discovered the solution to the galaxy's crisis. Instead of imposing human physics on everything, they could awaken all the dormant realities that had been suppressed over the millennia. Each species could have regions where their understanding of physics took precedence, connected by neutral zones that followed baseline universal constants. Dr. Bae Young-soo began the delicate process of weaving different reality frameworks together. The mathematics were staggering. requiring them to balance thousands of different physics paradigms while maintaining the structural integrity of spacetime itself. "It's like conducting an orchestra," he said, his consciousness touching each suppressed reality bubble throughout the galaxy. Each species has their own rhythm, their own understanding of how the universe should work. We need to help them harmonize without canceling each other out. Above them in normal space, the Dominion's reality bomb fleet was preparing to begin their systematic destruction of every altered star system. Supreme Hierarch Zolneth watched the tactical displays, preparing to give the order that would commit genocide on a galactic scale. "Sir," his science advisor reported, "we're detecting massive quantum disturbances throughout the galactic core. Something is happening in the quantum foam itself." Zolneth dismissed the readings. "Background radiation from the reality distortions. Proceed with bomb deployment." But what was happening in the quantum foam was far from background radiation. The 12 human consciousness had become something beyond individual identity. They were now living interfaces between different reality paradigms, using their expanded awareness to create bridges between incompatible physics systems. Communications Officer Lee Sang-min reached out to touch the suppressed reality of the crystalline Kethmori. Their physics was based on harmonic resonance, where matter could exist in multiple states simultaneously through controlled vibration. He helped their dormant reality begin to reawaken, creating stable zones where crystalline physics could operate without conflicting with nearby space. Security Chief Han Woo-jin connected with the aquatic, Myrthel's suppressed understanding of fluid dynamics. Their reality was based on flow and pressure, where energy moved like water through carefully shaped channels. He guided their physics back into existence, creating oceanic zones where their technology could function perfectly. One by one, the crew reached out to every suppressed reality they could find. The gaseous Vexhi, who understood existence as patterns of energy density. The silicon-based Krelneth, whose physics was based on crystalline matrix structures. Dozens of other species, each with their own unique understanding of how the universe should work. Lieutenant Commander Oh Sung-jin took on the most dangerous task, creating the neutral zones that would connect all these different realities without allowing them to cancel each other out. These bridge regions had to follow baseline physics that all species could understand, while serving as translation layers between incompatible reality paradigms. The process was incredibly complex. Each connection required precise calibration to prevent feedback loops that could destroy entire star systems. But as more connections were made, the system began to stabilize itself, becoming stronger and more resilient with each new addition. In normal space, the first reality bomb was about to detonate when something impossible happened. The weapon simply stopped working. Its reality-erasing field, designed to create absolute void, encountered the new multi-paradigm structure and couldn't function. "Sir?" the Dominion weapons officer reported in confusion. "The reality bombs are not responding to detonation commands. It's as if they don't know what reality they're supposed to erase." Supreme Hierarch Zolneth watched in growing panic as his ultimate weapons became useless. The bombs were designed to destroy any reality that didn't match standard physics, but they couldn't target a galaxy where dozens of different physics systems coexisted peacefully. Throughout the galaxy, the suppressed realities were awakening. On Kethmori worlds, crystalline beings found they could once again manipulate matter through harmonic resonance. In Myrthul systems, aquatic species rediscovered their ability to control pressure and flow. The gaseous Vexhi learned to exist in multiple energy states simultaneously, but most importantly, these different physics systems weren't fighting each other anymore. The crew of the Defiant Dawn had created a stable framework where each species could use their natural understanding of reality within their own regions, while neutral zones allowed peaceful interaction between different paradigms. Park So-min, her consciousness now spread across multiple dimensions, created the final connections that would make the system self-sustaining. "The network is stable," she announced through the quantum foam. "Each reality paradigm is supporting and strengthening the others." The Dominion fleet found itself caught in the expanding network of connected realities. Their ships, designed to operate under a single set of physics, began to malfunction as they encountered regions where their technology was based on invalid assumptions. War fleets that had controlled the galaxy for millennia suddenly couldn't function. Their exotic matter reactors failed in regions where matter behaved according to crystalline harmonic principles. Their energy weapons couldn't fire in zones where aquatic flow dynamics governed energy transfer. But the crews weren't dying. Instead, they found themselves adapting to whatever reality paradigm they encountered. Dominion soldiers who entered Kethmori space began to understand crystalline physics instinctively. Officers who found themselves in Mirthul regions discovered they could manipulate energy, flows like water currents. The rigid hierarchy that had kept the Dominion in power for 3,000 years began to dissolve as its enforcers learned that there were countless ways to understand and interact with reality. Species that had been enemies for millennia found they could coexist peacefully when each was free to live according to their own physics paradigm. Supreme Hierarch Zolnath made one final attempt to maintain control. He ordered his personal flagship to ram the source of the reality network, hoping that destroying the human ship would collapse the entire system. But when his ship reached the quantum foam layer where the Defiant Dawn was operating, it encountered something beyond his understanding. The human vessel was no longer a single ship. It had become a living network node, simultaneously existing in all reality paradigms while serving as a bridge between them. "This is impossible," Zolnath said, as his flagship was caught in the network's influence. "Reality cannot work this way. Captain Minho, his consciousness now part of something much larger than humanity, spoke through the quantum field. Reality works however conscious beings believe it can work. Your empire failed because it tried to limit consciousness instead of celebrating its infinite possibilities." Zolnath's ship was gradually transformed by exposure to the reality network. Instead of being destroyed, it became something new, a vessel that could operate in any physics paradigm while serving as a diplomatic transport between different reality zones. Some Dominion leaders chose to fight the transformation, retreating to the galaxy's edge where they could maintain small enclaves of the old single-paradigm reality. Others embraced the change, discovering abilities they had never imagined when consciousness was freed from artificial limitations. The reality bombs, designed as weapons of ultimate destruction, were converted into reality anchors that helped stabilize the boundaries between different physics zones.